Welcome to the OT. I'm Elise Jesse. It is Battle for Ohio week, and you can bet that the Cincinnati Bengals have revenge on their minds because they've won 6 of their last 7 games. That one loss was to the Cleveland Browns. It was embarrassing for them on Monday Night Football. They lost 32-13. We don't have to remind you of what happened, but I will remind you that DJ Reader and Jamar Chase were not playing in that game, and Nick Chubb ran for over 100 yards, had 2 touchdowns, and now I think the Cleveland Browns are coming in to face a completely different Bengals team. You remember in that game on Halloween night, the Browns were able to sack Joe Burrow 5 times. Well, the offensive line has allowed 2 or fewer sacks through the last 4 games. So they're clicking right on time. They are getting hot. This team is getting hot right when they need to be. It is December football, important football games to be played throughout the next 5 weeks. I talked to BJ Hill this afternoon, and I was just asking him about the hot streak and how they're feeling going into the Cleveland game on Sunday. Do you think the Browns are meeting you guys at the wrong possible time during the season?
I think every game is important. We're just hot right now, playing really good on defense. Offense got rolling. I'm excited to get to the game and play those guys. They had our number the first time, and see what we can do with them this time.
I feel like every team wants to be healthy and hot late into the season. How nice is it to be in that position this year?
Great. It's always good to play your best football right now. At the beginning, we were struggling a little bit. People was counting us out, but we turned it around real quick. I'm excited about this next couple months here in Cincinnati.
What did you learn about last game that you take into this game, or last game against the Browns specifically?
We just got to do better all around, especially on defense. We got to stop the run the best we can and get more pressure on the quarterback. I feel like if we do those things, we'll be good.
What makes Nick Chubb such an angry, hard kind of runner?
Well, he's one of the best in the league. So I don't know. He just does it all. He's a tough, hard runner. Runs downhill really hard. He can make people miss. That's what makes him so good. He's a big back. Yeah. Really big back.
What are you expecting from Deshaun Watson? I know he didn't have a great game last week. I think he had his lowest rating of his career at 53.4. He's been out for 2 years.
Yeah.
What are you guys kind of expecting from him on Sunday?
Yeah, like you said, he's been out 2 years. I know he's turning around here pretty soon. We just got to affect him as much as we can, get to him as much as we can, and that's pretty much it. I feel like if we do that, it should take care of itself.
I was talking to DJ Reader earlier, and he was like, he was former teammates with Deshaun Watson, and he goes, yeah, I want him to do well. I just don't want him to bounce back this week. After this week,
I feel you on that because he is a good quarterback when he gets going, for sure. Yeah, I'm right there with DJ, for sure.
What do you make of Germaine Pratt's ability to make massive plays at those times in the game when you guys seem like you really need them?
I've seen him do it his whole career, even in college, always making big plays when we needed it. Come in here, seeing him to do it. It's awesome. Every time we need a big play, somebody's always stepping up and making a big play. He came up last week with the big play, and when we needed to give the offensive ball back, and they scored.
The fans call him Playoff Pete. Do you guys call him that?
No, his name is Germaine to me. I would never call him that.
Why not?
Because his name is Germaine. Like I knew him since he was a little one. You know what I'm saying? So I would never call him that.
So you will never adopt Playoff Pete. What was he like when you guys were younger?
Pretty much the same guy, a guy who loves football. Yeah. He always put time and hard work. That has really changed. But he just got a little bigger. You know what I'm saying? He used to be, just a little bit. He used to be a safety running around, with the linebacker. But not too crazy.
As you heard, BJ Hill was sort of implying that Germaine Pratt was on the smaller side. So I went to talk to Germaine Pratt to find out, to investigate if he was a smaller guy when he was playing safety. He made that switch. He had that torn labrum and made the switch from safety to linebacker during college. And he showed me some pictures of his freshman year at college, and he was significantly smaller. He's put on some muscle, and I asked him, how did you put on that weight? And he said, burgers, chicken nuggets, fries, all of that miraculously turned into muscle. Here he is. You know it as well as I know it, that you continually make the big plays in the big moments when it counts, when your team needs somebody to step up. What is it about you that is able to make those big plays that your team usually needs in those moments?
This is my mindset, just having to switch to change that. I need to make a play in the biggest moments, to give the offense the ball back. You just, like, growing up, you always wanted to, like, if you play basketball, you always want the ball in your hand or something. But I play defense, so it's hard for me to have the ball in my hand to make a play, to score or something. So I think it's just, I got to get a turnover, make a momentum switch, swing.
Does it feel, when you make those big plays, does it feel like all of your hard work, your studying, your lifting, your practice, does it feel like all that work has come to fruition for you?
Yeah, you put in the work, what you do countless nights and stuff, what you invested, so then you have opportunity to showcase it.
And did you have to switch positions at some point?
Yeah,
In college?
yeah, I switched in college.
What
I knew
were you
that.
before?
I was on safety, but I knew I was gonna switch to linebacker. I just knew that I was able to change linebacker game. More than linebacker was so big, and like how the game looked, it looked like I was be a great linebacker, be able to run sideline to sideline, cover, do different things, bring a different aspect to the game at linebacker position.
Was it your choice, or did your coach, your mentor, somebody say, like, Germaine, you need to switch?
I mean, it was my coach's decision, so I just knew. But I knew that when I was going to get to this level, I wanted to switch. I didn't want to play safety, but because it was just playing in the middle of the field, I didn't like that. I like to be in the box, like to be engaged and stuff. I liked to be in the box. That's where I was a box safety, so it basically was an easy change to be playing linebacker.
Okay, so that was a relatively easy transition.
Yeah, it wasn't that hard.
So sitting in the middle of the field obviously seems like it would be a boring task for you.
It's not a boring task. It is like you just know what it is. Like, you the last person, like in the safety world. That's like the hardest tackle ever. It is you and him. If it gas, then it's on you. You gotta make the play. So they only remember the last person that's about to get scored on or something.
And did you have to sit out a year?
Yeah, I sat out because of my labrum. I tore my labrum.
Okay.
So I just went to get it repaired. That's all.
That's not a fun surgery. Because isn't your arm in a sling?
Yeah, it was in a sling for like a couple weeks, but I got progressive fast. I healed it fast, so I better to play. I got back, did a little bit of spring ball, like after 3 months or 4 months, but I healed real fast.
Looking back, your instinct was obviously right to switch to linebacker. How happy are you that you made that switch from safety to linebacker?
I'm very happy. I'm grateful to play in the NFL every day. Better come to work, better to play the thing I like, the game I love. Growing up as a kid, you always wanted to play in the NFL, and then playing. First, I started out just chasing out my brother. He was playing football, so it was huge. Like, to be able to play the game I love. So linebacker is a great switch for me, I think.
I was talking to BJ Hill earlier, and he said that he's obviously known you forever.
Yeah.
And I asked him what you were like when you were younger, and he said, pretty much the same. Loved football, just a little bit smaller.
Yeah, that's all it was. I was little, like 190 when I first got there. BJ was small too. He was like 240 or something, 250, and then just gained so much weight so fast. But in college, I gained weight fast. I grew like 30 pounds, like 35 something, in like throughout the spring, like the 4 months I was there, so it was fast.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Damn, that's like 8 pounds of muscle.
Yeah, it was.
How did you do that?
Eating, that's all it was.
What was your favorite food to eat?
What did we have? I can't even remember.
Like milkshakes and cheeseburgers?
No, I didn't do.
Or was it
it was probably it was cheeseburgers, probably cheeseburger and cakes and stuff like the love.
Okay.
It was probably like cheeseburgers and chicken nuggets and fries, like that. Yeah. So it was like a bunch of stuff.
Gain weight for good.
Yeah.
I like it. I also talked to Tee Higgins. Tee Higgins going up against the Browns, and he knows exactly what it means to have Jamar Chase back out on that field. It seems like they are playing lights out defensively. What are you seeing when you watch film?
Yeah, like you said, they've been playing super good. A lot of four, but we just got to go out there and play our game, execute our game plan, and hopefully the rest will take care of itself.
and obviously everyone around the league considers you to be a wide receiver one. But bringing Chase back, what does that do for you guys as a team? Because the first round on Halloween night, you guys didn't have Chase. That was the first game without him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it brings back that guys got to keep Chase. I mean, he's the receiver that he is. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it was a good thing that he was out, but it was also a good thing for me and Joe to establish our chemistry, and we can go from there.
Winning 6 of the last 7 games. Are you feeling it in this locker room like you guys are on a roll, you're hitting your stride at the right time?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely feel good, but we still know that the work's not done. There's still more out there for us, and we got to keep working no matter what, day in and day out, and hopefully we can keep this streak going.
And what do you think that this atmosphere is going to be like on Sunday, knowing that the Browns are coming in? If they win on Sunday, it's their 3rd consecutive sweep. Obviously, you don't want to have that happen. I have a feeling that the Bengals fans will be ruckus.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a divisional game. All divisional games are crazy, in-state rivalry. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be a crazy game, especially from the fan standpoint. It's always rocking. It's always feel like a college game out here in Cincinnati. So I mean, it's definitely going to be a fun one.
And last but certainly not least, I was able to have Cameron Wolfe of NFL Network on the show with us today. We talked all things Kansas City. He was at this game last Sunday. We talked all things Browns and what this rivalry means. We talked about the AFC North and the fight that the Bengals are in with the Ravens for that AFC North crown and how important that game at the end of the year could be between those two squads. And we also talked about something pretty interesting that's been talked about a lot in Cincinnati, I think, is why Joe Burrow is not featured in more conversations about MVPs and the best quarterbacks in the league. He's not always in the conversation when the national media is talking about Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. For some reason, he seems like he doesn't get as much love as those guys. And Cameron Wolfe really dug into that, and I think he gave a really great answer. Here he is. So we welcome in Cameron Wolfe of NFL Network. Before NFL Network, you were with ESPN. You're covering the Denver Broncos for a few seasons. I'm really excited to have you on the show. You were at the game in Cincinnati when they played the Chiefs on Sunday. What was your takeaway First, I want to ask you about the atmosphere, because I absolutely know that place was rocking on Sunday.
Yeah, it was jumping. I was there from the very beginning. We had to do TV starting at like 9 a.m. And so when I was there was no one. It was just us and the security guards. But little by little, people started trickling in the afternoon. And I actually had a coach tell me on the sideline, a Bengals coach, he thinks this is the biggest game in recent franchise memory. And the atmosphere kind of felt that. I remember walking off the field or walking on the field as the clock hit 0. And I just did a pan around to the crowd. And it was like everybody on their feet. Electric and Cincinnati doesn't have the national reputation of being like this raucous crowd, but it felt like just like any other huge raucous crowd I've ever been to on maybe the game of the year. And so I think it was dope for players to see that. Like I saw guys walking off the field, pumping up the crowd, they saw their significant others or family members and pointing at them, guys signing autographs. And so it had a really playoff feel. And I know it's not the end for the Bengals, but there was such a satisfaction after all the week of a little bit of talking back and forth, whether it be the players or the fans. It was like it all culminated when it hit zeros. And so I enjoyed the atmosphere for sure. I definitely felt Paycor rocking on Sunday.
Yeah, definitely. You could tell, even watching it on TV, you could absolutely tell that place was nuts. And watching Joe Burrow, it's crazy to think that the Bengals are the first team to beat the Chiefs 3 times in a calendar year. I think no matter what sport you play, beating any team 3 times in 1 year is nearly impossible, I would think.
Absolutely.
What do you think allowed the Cincinnati Bengals to achieve that on Sunday?
Yeah, like 1 time, maybe it's luck. 2 times, maybe it's a coincidence. 3 times, you've got their number. Like you got their number. It's you're figuring something out there. And I think there's a few things. First of all, I know a lot of people in Cincinnati land do, so I'm not talking about you, but I don't think we give nearly as a national media Joe Burrow enough respect. Because I think a lot of times you hear people talk about the top quarterbacks. It's Patrick Mahomes or it's Josh Allen, and maybe Justin Herbert gets in there. And I'm like, Joe Burrow deserves to be right in the thick, if not higher than some of the guys I mentioned. And so I think that getting Joe Burrow playing the football he was at the end of the game, throwing that 3rd and 11 pass to Tee Higgins when probably almost every other quarterback in the league, you say, hey, we're just going to hand it off. We're going to run the time off the clock. We're going to punt it out. We're going to play defense. But no, Joe Burrow told his guys in the locker room, in the huddle, Jamar Chase told me after the game, he asked him if it's going to be a pass or a run. He said, it's a pass. We're passing it. And it's like, let's go get it. And so he's a stone cold killer to me. I think Joe Burrow certainly deserves to be in the MVP race right there with Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. To me, those are my top 3 right now. And I think that was what my huge takeaway from the game was. I knew Joe Burrow was him coming into the game, but he put a stamp on that, beating this Chiefs team for the 3rd time in a year. And also, I want to give some love to the defensive side of the ball because, that's we're an offensive league, right? Fantasy football drives everything. And so we'll talk about Jamar Chase and his return and Tee Higgins catch and Samaje Perine. But defense, they had Travis Kelce in a straitjacket in the first half. I didn't even know he was playing. So this team has seemed to match up well with him, Kelce, in all 3 games. And I think that's a big key to facing this Chiefs team, particularly without Tyreek Hill, because when you talk to people around the league, Patrick Mahomes has done incredible in evolving his game and his patience without Tyreek, but it's because he relies on Travis Kelce even more. And so if you can take away Travis and force Juju or Marquez Valdes-Scantling, some of these other guys to beat you, then you've got a really good chance. And so they played really, really good ball in zone coverage on Kelce. They also were, really tight on bringing some pressure at times on Mahomes. And, they didn't blink. They didn't blink at any point when they had an opportunity. And this is a game where, you're playing a Mahomes. It's very easy to, lose track of things at times, lose, and they never did. And so I give them credit. I think that, like I said, there was a lot of talk during this week. And so when I walked in the locker room, the first thing I remember is Mike Hilton pointing to me and saying, what did I tell you this week? What did I tell you? And the thing he told me, I said it on NFL Network to start in pregame. And he was like, we have something prepared for Patrick Mahomes, because one of the things that happened in the AFC Championship game is they dropped 8 into coverage a bunch in the second half and rushed 3, and they forced Patrick Mahomes to be patient, and he struggled. They had 2 interceptions. BJ Hill had 1, and they also had 1, I believe, with Von Bell. And so this whole season, Patrick Mahomes has been getting a lot better with his patience. And so the evolution of him has been that this game, they did a little bit different. They drop 8 sometimes, but they also brought some blitzes sometimes. They also went into some different coverages. And I can tell with some of the disguises that slowed Mahomes and that offense down a bit. So definitely give credit to Burrow, but also some love to the defense for those 3 wins in the calendar year.
Yeah, I think you're right. The defense needed to show up, especially against such a great quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. And I'm glad that you brought up this earlier point, especially as a national reporter, Cameron, that Joe Burrow doesn't seem to get the same amount of love as Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Why do you think that is? Do you think that maybe the national media, the Bengals, it's been a while since they've been relevant. They were relevant in 2015, obviously. But between 2015 and 2021, they really weren't relevant in the national spotlight.
Yeah, I think market size definitely has a lot to do with it, like relevance with Cincinnati. But the reality is Kansas City's not a huge market. Buffalo's not a huge market. And so some of it's sustained success. Patrick Mahomes obviously has been this guy pretty much for the last 5 years. And then Josh Allen has been the biggest challenger to him in the last 3 or 4 years. So the Bengals are the new challenger to the Chiefs. The Chiefs have been that team for a while, and now the Bengals are the new team. And so I think you'll see them get more respect. But a lot of times us in the national media, hopefully not me, but us as a group, I'll include us as a group, we're late sometimes. It takes us a little bit. It's kind of like the Pro Bowl vote. Whenever you have your first Pro Bowl season, you usually don't get in. It's usually the second year, the third year when you start to get that love. And so, and to be honest, I think a lot of part of it is the styles of quarterbacks. Like Joe Burrow, I think his moxie, his toughness, those are some of the characteristics that make him special. He doesn't have the 70-yard bomb down the field like Mahomes. He has a really good arm, but not the Mahomes or Josh Allen arm.
Strong arm.
And he's not the 6'5", 240-pound guy who's gonna be like Josh Allen. So like physically, you look at him, and Josh Allen's the more physically imposing guy. Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and Josh Allen have the most physically imposing arm. And so a lot of times we get obsessed with traits and fancy football numbers and don't look at who finds the way to make the play at the end. And so I do think that'll turn around. I saw some talk shows the last couple of days, and I think finally we're starting to get the proper love for Joe Burrow. But I do think that some of it is market, some of it's time, and some of it's just people looking at the quarterback and saying, who looks like the guy I want to promote?
Okay, Cameron, that was such a great explanation. I'm so glad you explained it so well, because it was even stumping me for a little while. I'm like, what is going on here? This is not making sense to me.
It's wild. But people are waking up. People have to wake up because Joe Burrow really is him. Like I said, a stone cold killer is kind of the vibe I got. Like even in pregame, I watch him in pregame, and I watch a lot of quarterbacks. I never saw him smile one time in pregame. And maybe it's something small, but like he's going through his rhythm. He's just locked in. Like even some of the elite guys, like Mahomes smiles, all these other guys. No, Joe is locked in, focused, and assassin. And that's his style. And I think it fits well with this city. And so I think they're happy to have him. And, he'll be one of the elite guys that we'll talk about for a very long time.
So they're playing so well right now. They have Jamar Chase back. They have DJ Reader back on defense, which makes a huge impact for them defensively. And those are two guys who were missing on that Monday night SmackDown, Halloween night in First Energy Stadium. I know they want to exact some revenge there. I think it will be interesting to see how they fare against Nick Chubb now that DJ Reader is back. And I think it will be interesting to see how this defense goes up against Deshaun Watson, who is playing in just his second game. He's been out for 700 days.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were talking about this before, but one of the most mind-blowing things is the fact that the Bengals and Joe Burrow are 0-4 against the Browns and 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Like this league is
does not make sense.
It is. It doesn't make sense, right? But sometimes teams have teams' numbers, and at least for this short period, the Browns have the Bengals' number, and so sometimes it's a philosophical and a mindset thing to get over that hurdle, to be able to beat the Browns, which is why, I thought it was dope. I saw some of the Bengals reporters talking about Jesse Bates saying that they came in, it was Victory Monday, and nearly the whole team's in there. That's what championship teams do. You're coming against a team that, for whatever reason, we don't know why, but they've had your number. And so, yeah, it'd be easy to kind of relish the win. We just beat the Chiefs. They said we could in 3 in a row. Like, it's easy to kind of like have a 48 hours instead of 24 hours celebration of that. But they realize the importance of this game. I do think that having DJ Reader back will be a huge, huge deal there. Jamar Chase back, which he wasn't in the first game, will be huge there. But you got to look at the common threads of maybe why this Browns team gives the Bengals trouble. And this is a run-oriented team. Nick Chubb, they like to be physical. And so this is a game where you have to be the tougher, more physical team. You got to be able to win ugly. And so the hope is, and even that's why I say that even more important, like the Chiefs game was huge, but I would say that the Titans game taught me a lot about this Bengals team, because that was a style of team that I was worried they would have trouble with. The physical team, the team that could run downhill, that could say, hey, we're smash mouth. Can you stop us? And they stuffed Derrick Henry. And on the other side of the ball, their offensive line contained Jeffrey Simmons, who's one of the best defensive tackles in football. And so on both sides of the line, I saw their toughness, their physicality. And so I'm eager to see if they bring that same mentality they played with Tennessee against this Cleveland Browns team, because you mentioned Deshaun Watson, but I watched him in the first game and he still looks very rusty. He didn't have a good game. They won because of their defense and because of a special teams touchdown. This wasn't a situation where they were dominant offensively. And so I think that you're going to come in on Sunday and this team is going to be the same style that they were on Halloween. They're going to try to run the ball with Nick Chubb. They're going to try to run the ball with Kareem Hunt, maybe some Watson running and a few play action passes. And you got to be manning up defensively enough to be able to stop them.
Well, yeah, I think it was Mary Kay Cabot who covers the Browns. She's covered them for a very long time. She said that Deshaun Watson in an article recently that he couldn't hit the ocean from the beach coming back. I think that's a very good way to describe
That's a good analogy too.
his first game back.
Right. And I didn't watch the whole game, but I watched certain elements of it, and I saw, and that's a pretty good comparison. Like he did not play good ball. Like I think if you look at the numbers analytic wise, I think he was a bottom 5 quarterback as far as how he played in the previous week. And so, the whole idea that Watson's going to transform the Browns overnight, we're not seeing that, at least now. Maybe in 2023, when he gets a full offseason, maybe he's a better player. But right now, I think this is still the Nick Chubb-led team that they faced on Halloween. And so because of that, this defensive line and this linebacker group are really going to be challenged on Sunday. And they're going to have to be able to respond. And I also think that this is a game where, because of how the Browns have played, they've been a team that's been susceptible a lot more to run than pass. And so I'm looking at this as a situation where maybe you get Joe Mixon back, and him and the duo of Samaje Perine may be a group that you lean on even more on this Sunday. And like I said, maybe it's not the pretty national game, but if you get a win, even if it's 17-14, you get the bugaboo off your back and you can kind of move forward on your pursuit to win the AFC North.
You talked about Deshaun Watson, the defensive line needing to come after him, which I think they will. I think they will bring that pressure. And I think also the offensive line does need to play well for the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday against the Browns. Joe Burrow was sacked 5 times in that Monday night game where they lost on Halloween. I think the Browns do have some of the offensive linemen's numbers as well. And I think that they need to be playing as good as they have been in the last month. It seems like finally this offensive line has clicked. And this is what we have been expecting since week 1. Granted, they didn't play together and didn't gel yet. So now we are finally seeing what the coaches were expecting us to see from the start of the year.
Yeah, it's a big game for La'el Collins. This is a guy who early in the season really struggled, has played better in spurts, recently. And they're going to bring a lot of pressure off the edge. You've got Myles Garrett, you got Jadeveon Clowney.
Right.
That's where they win, off the edge. And so if they see a weakness there, they're going to attack. And like you said, the 5-sack performance showed that. And so, I really like what they've been able to do in the interior of the line. I love Ted Karras addition. I love the Alex Kappa addition. But I think this is a game for the edge guys. The edge guys have got to be able to contain the Browns' pressure. Because we know that's how you get some of those downfield throws to Jamar Chase that the Bengals fans love to see. And so that to me is the game. Can the offensive tackles handle Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney? That'll be able to be, how they handle the pass game. And then on the other side of the ball, can their defensive tackles and linebackers be able to handle them up front as they try to run the ball? This is a trenches game. Last game, it might have been a receivers and DBs game. It's quarterbacks. That was Mahomes, Burrow. So it's all about the DBs and the receivers. This one, a little bit more in the trenches. This one's about the big guys.
I completely agree with you. And I want to touch on the AFC North crown for a minute because yes, the Ravens, they barely scraped by and beat the Denver Broncos, a team that you used to cover back in the day. The Denver Broncos, I don't feel like that is a huge accomplishment. They're 3-9.
No, not the same Denver Broncos team I covered when they won the Super Bowl back in 15. That is for sure.
Definitely not. But the Ravens, granted, we will obviously give credit to the fact that Lamar Jackson has that PCL injury. Tyler Huntley ended up leading them to a win with, I think, 28 seconds left. But just the fact that they are in another fight with the Ravens for the AFC North crown, if both continue to win, will you just describe for me what we can expect the magnitude of that game to be at the end of the season?
Yeah, I think it's going to be the AFC North Championship game, that Week 18 game in Cincinnati. Right now, they're tied for the division lead, but the Ravens currently have the tiebreaker because of their win earlier this year. But the Bengals control their own destiny, right? And so I could certainly see that being the game that decides. I think both teams make the playoffs, but that game decides who gets to host a playoff game and who's getting to go on the road. And so that's going to be intense. It's a rivalry game. It's maybe not on the level that the Browns are, but it's still a big rivalry game with Baltimore. And obviously, Lamar Jackson should be back by then and healthy. And so we get another quarterback duel between Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. And so one thing to note that, if you're looking ahead, which we can look ahead, coaches say they don't, but the schedules are very interesting because the Ravens have a very, how can we say it, soft schedule coming
towards
up
the end, yeah.
toward that end. They play the Steelers twice, which the Steelers have been playing better, and it's a divisional opponent, but not quite the same as the Bengals schedule. And they also play the Falcons, and I believe they also play the Browns. And so the only winning team left on their schedule is the Bengals in Week 18, whereas the Bengals, they've got the Browns, who've been a bugaboo. They've got the Bills game.
That's going to be huge.
That's going to be huge on Monday Night Football.
Mm-hmm.
Also have the Bengals themselves, and so I think they have the Patriots as well, I believe.
Yep, you're right.
So these are teams that the Bills and the Patriots, who are going to be competing for divisions and playoff spots. A team that they have not beat yet in the Burrow era, and then the Bengals. So that's a hard stretch, and so they're going to have to play a lot of really good ball. But I do think that what helps them is I think they are a better team than the Ravens. I think they're a better team than the Ravens. And I think that if it comes down to that Week 18 game, my money's on Joe Burrow and the Bengals.
I think I'm going to go with you, and I think the fans love that answer from you as well, Cameron. Well, I've got one last question for you, and it's been touched on a bunch today in the national media, just about how this team has evolved, because I'm sure you remember at the start of the season, they were having a lot of trouble against split safety defenses, cover two, and they have found a way to come together, figure out what's going wrong, and fix it, essentially, and evolve into a team that seems like they're even better than they were last year.
Absolutely. They are better. To me, they're a better team than last year. They're a more complete team than last year. I think, like I mentioned earlier, I don't think their defense gets enough credit, but I also think the offensive line improvements were huge for this team because that was the glaring weakness that they won in spite of. I still remember that Tennessee game they won. I think Joe Burrow got sacked, maybe 9 times? It was something outrageous, and they still won that game, which is unreal. And so, this team has cleared up a lot of their weaknesses. I did think that early in the season, I talked to Tyler Boyd about this before the game, they started off 0-2. I think a lot of people thought Super Bowl hangover. This team is 1 year wonder. It's a fluke. You couldn't trust the Bengals. They're the same old Bengals, right? And so they clearly used that as motivation, and they got back on track. People forget Joe Burrow missed some camp with the appendix deal. And so you got to wonder how much that was an impact early on, even though he won't admit it, that timing and chemistry, and you get that back on track. But I told this story on NFL Network, and this was a part of it. About week 5, actually, in that Ravens game we just alluded to, that they ended up losing, there was a change. Their quarterback coach, Dan Pitcher, and offensive coordinator Brian Callahan, made a switch to give Joe Burrow more shotgun snaps, and they gave him more autonomy in the line. As Bengals fans know, they were getting real cute in the red zone, and some fans may say they were cute the other day in the red zone on 4th down. They were getting too cute in the red zone late last year and early in the season, and so they tried to simplify it a lot more and give Burrow chances to audible at the line, have more autonomy and scramble around. And so since then, they have been really efficient in the red zone, top 3 in red zone efficiency. They have had just 7 turnovers going into yesterday's game. Since week 1, they had 5 against the Steelers, 7 since. And so that, I believe, played a part in it. Them giving Burrow more control and also being more efficient as an offense. And so that, along with the guys they signed getting more comfortable, offensive line gelling, some of the defensive guys, gelling, I think that all has played a role in this team being, in my opinion, one of the team's top contenders to make it to the Super Bowl.
Well, we love to hear it. Bengals fans love hearing you talk about the Cincinnati Bengals and their success. Cameron, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I actually learned something in this conversation, so I appreciate you joining the OT. I hope you have an awesome weekend, and hopefully I will see you at one of these games coming up.
Absolutely. I'm sure you will. There's a lot of big ones down the stretch, so I'm sure you will. And maybe next time we talk, the Bengals will have the Browns monkey off their back by then.
Yes. Fingers crossed. Let's see. Yes. All right. Thank you so much.
Cameron Wolfe, awesome as usual. And I also spoke off camera with DJ Reader. He is Deshaun Watson's former teammate in Houston. And DJ was really funny. He just said, of course, he hopes that Deshaun does well. I think everybody knows that Deshaun Watson did not play well in his debut last week. And he had his worst rating, 53.4. That is his worst rating of his career. But DJ also said, the guy hasn't played football in 2 years. And also said that he hopes he does well. He hopes he makes a comeback, just not on Sunday. He hopes that Deshaun makes that comeback in his third week back to football. He did say that he would probably meet up with Deshaun on Saturday and kind of catch up with him. Longtime teammates. And it's going to be interesting to watch DJ Reader go up against his former teammate, Deshaun Watson. I am certainly looking forward to Sunday. I know you are too. I will also see you here next Thursday at 8 o'clock.